computer. Okay, so welcome. How about everybody grabs a seat after you get a drink, and we'll just slowly come together. There is some seating over there and here. I have no idea what time it is. I think we should just start.
Do we need more chairs?
I don't know. If we need more chairs, I don't think we need more chairs. I think we're good. So yeah, here we are. The Thief, the Spinner, and the Fabulist. That's a crazy title, and it comes from, I was inspired, how we get inspired. It just sort of happens on these vague little thin, fragile threads. And I was thinking about, this idea of the thief in our world. And, given our political circumstances, right, we have this crazy villain running the show. And so when I think about a thief, I immediately thought about, there's a few poets who there's several poets who reference our dark nature. And here it is, on a rampage, right? So, one in particular, and I don't know which one it is. I don't know whether it's Wordsworth or Browning, but I imagine this crone, right, with a cane, telling us, we're all villains, we're all murderers, right? We're all, wreaking havoc, and so I just wanted to honor, not honor, but think about that, introduce that. It's happening, right? We're all storytellers. It's our human nature. But what is that? And we have this, Trump, who's doing it in a big way, very manipulative, right? And we all have those traits inside us. So that's where the thief comes from. And he spins all kinds of tales, and we spin all kinds of tales, whether they're true or false. And it's, we're often in between those two, the positive and the dark. So I wanted to, just throw that out there in terms of a theme to think about, because this is about storytelling. It's storytelling about the objects in our lives, so the object and these particular arrangements is the vehicle for storytelling. And the thief in art are the artists, right? We've been appropriating since the beginning of time. That's what we do. Cultures have pillaged other cultures, the church, the museums, we've got that in us. And so I wanted to honor that. And so where's the art, right? What do we do? We're in this exhibition of objects and arrangements. And so the art is for you to, because all these objects have come from different places, they're now displaced, they're in new contexts, and they're in new relationships. And the idea is to form your own stories, and how do you do that? Well, I do have a little way for you I've asked you some questions for you to depart from, and you can form your own stories. And you can start by what's the focus, what are the elements, how do they relate with one another, and so even though these specific objects all have their own stories, in a new context, they take on a whole other expansive relationship and a new, and take on more greater meaning, okay? So that is the role of the object in this exhibition. It's really focusing on these relationships between things and for you to engage in your imagination and to explore new possibilities. Okay, any questions from that? Anyway, so that's the start. Now, we do have 3 storytellers. Peter Lind, Jeremy Rayburn, and Keryn Nightingale, who some of you know, I'm sure. And I'm going to start with Peter. Where are you, Peter? Oh, you're right here.
I couldn't get much closer.
Peter lives up the road from Alfred and I, and he's treasured, along with Mary. Okay, so Peter considers himself a serial creative. He composes anecdotal poems and stories drawn from his life. He plays jazz, okay, he's a jazz musician, and country music daily on his alto saxophone and harmonicas, and he enjoys cooking whenever there's time or overwhelming hunger. So please, let's welcome Peter Lind.
Somehow, that's not quite right. Somehow Sam gave me permission to do this. I'm going to have my own warm-up here. So I'm going to recite a little poem before I tell my story, because I wrote this poem a little while ago. To you, my dear old friend, I sent some sencha. It's a green tea said to ward off dementia. It may be missing in the mail, lost to no avail. Alas, the sencha I sent ya is in absentia. Okay, I feel warm now. Good, thank you. It occurred to me that I don't have to say what this object is, and I didn't realize that until I got here, that you would have to decide what it was from my story. And, you know, now that I've said that and realized that, I have about 12 seconds to figure out if I can do that. About 5 years ago, I helped my mother move into her current home, which is a retirement home. And when I did that, there were a number of boxes that she had left for each of us siblings. And I collected that set of boxes and took them home. And about a year ago, I was going through the boxes, and there was a book. And inside that book was my particular object. And I knew my parents would not look in the Bible for that object, because although my parents sent us to Sunday school every week, it was mostly to get us out of the house. So my mother could have some time alone, and my father could do some work. So I knew I was safe, and I put it in the Bible. Well, that's where I found it. Now, to go back in time here a little bit, this was a Thursday in 1969. And my mother was, come on in. I don't know where you are, but come on in. And my mother was working at the Devon Horse Show outside of Philadelphia. It was a fundraiser for the Bryn Mawr Hospital, and she was, that year, had graduated to be the president of her particular fundraising capacity. And she knew that in doing so, she was going to be spending about 10, 12 hours a day at the horse show. So she hired this old woman, who's probably younger than I am now, to come in and cook for us kids and to deal with the house while we were, doing our thing. But she hired this woman, and her name was Aunt Kate. She was no relation to us. And she mostly sat in the room and made very strange burping and farting noises in the corner of the kitchen. It was actually very strange and disturbing for us, but that doesn't have anything to do with this story. And so that particular morning, Thursday morning, the end of May, beginning of June, I decided to go for a little run with our Cocker Spaniel named Thor. And we ran about a mile straight over to my girlfriend Meg's house. Now, Meg and I had been together for about a year and a half. And it started innocently enough and moved from there. And most weekends we would end up one of the nights in her parents' living room, making out, having a great time. But at that particular winter, before this May, her father had drawn the line. You will not, under this roof, continue this kind of activity. So we were like, oh man, now what do we do? We tried using the park in the middle of winter. It was not very comfortable. But as soon as there was a warm day in March, now you got to know this was Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is a month and a half ahead of us. So the beginning of March, my girlfriend Meg goes outside to the tool shed, and she grabs all the shovels and the rakes and the buckets and the planters and everything, and she hauls them into the basement, which has been newly renovated, and she organizes them beautifully in that new space, but empties the tool shed and gets her brother to help bring her bed down to the tool shed and half of her clothing. Well, that was great because we were not under her parents' roof anymore. She had deftly defied them, and they didn't really see what was going on right away, which was fantastic. So we, from the beginning of March, were finally really having the fun that we were trying to have for a long time. And, we didn't really take that many precautions. We were not the brightest. Perhaps we should have been a little brighter as we were 17 years old, but we weren't that bright. And that morning that I went running over, that Thursday morning, the end of May, I went running over, and I'd been in this tool shed before and had some really good times. I immediately got in, my shoes were off, my pants were off, a lot of it was off, and I was into the bed, and almost ready to, anyway, the first words out of her mouth were, I think I'm pregnant, which was a bit of a damper on the spirits. And so we talked about that for about an hour, not quite sure what to do, how to go about the next situations, how to resolve any of that stuff. So I left at about maybe about 7, and ran home a little slower than my way over with our dog Thor, and got back to the kitchen where my mother was getting ready to leave to go to the Devon Horse Show, and Aunt Kate had prepared breakfast. And I walked in, my mother said, "Where have you been?" I said, "I was walking the dog." And she said, "No, you weren't." I said, "Yeah, I was walking the dog." She goes, "Now, Peter, you know you weren't walking the dog. Where were you?" Now, I'm like, well, I can't tell her that I went over there to have some fun with my girlfriend. And I certainly can't tell her that my girlfriend is pregnant. And then I started to giggle a little bit. I mean, I didn't know what to do, so I started to laugh. And she said, "Peter," and I started to laugh a little harder. And then she said, "Peter, where have you been?" And I started to laugh maniacally. And she went over to the counter and she grabbed a package of open bacon and started slapping me over the head with it. And bacon grease all over my head. I was like, what? Go get dressed. I mean, I was dressed, but go get ready for school. I didn't know what to do. I went upstairs, I came down, I went to school. I wasn't sure, but we had this hip math teacher, and after class, I went in, I said, "Mr. Miller, I'm in trouble. I don't know what to do. I think my girlfriend's pregnant." He goes, "This is what we do. You get me a urine sample from her. You bring it in tomorrow morning. I take it to my sister. She works in a hospital. And on Monday, you'll know whether she's pregnant or not." I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's great. Sure, I'll do that." He says, "Well, what do you want to call her?" I said, "Well, her name's Meg." "Oh, you can't call her that." I don't know. I don't know what to call her." He goes, "Don't worry, bring me the urine." So I bring that, and on Monday, I get a note, which is right over there. And it says, "Jeanette Johnson is definitely not pregnant." That was one of the best days of my life. Thank you very much.
And you put it in the Bible? I put it in the Bible. Seemed like the right place. I don't know.
That is amazing. Ready? Thank you so much. That was awesome. Okay, Jeremy Rayburn. Okay, he's a comedian, filmmaker, and the new production manager at right next door, MRV TV. And by the way, thank you, MRV TV. They have set this whole situation up for us with great sound. He hosts a storytelling show in Burlington called Whale Tales. But this is his first time telling a story of his own. Let's welcome Jeremy Rayburn. Jeremy Rayburn.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Is this good? Okay. I love Peter's story. I feel like mine could be chapter 2. I have a 1-year-old daughter who does not like oatmeal. I would say we have about a 1 out of every 3 times success rate for her accepting oatmeal, which is kind of crazy. I think it's crazy she doesn't absolutely love oatmeal, because if it wasn't for oatmeal, she wouldn't exist. It was spring of 2016, and I am inside a grocery store in Brooklyn called Food Town. I am doing my weekly grocery shopping, which for a guy in his, a single guy in his mid-30s consists of buying a couple of oranges, some milk, cereal, and maybe a can of tuna. It's my 11th year living in New York. I've lived in 2 different boroughs, 6 different neighborhoods. I've had dozens of roommates, a handful of jobs. I've eaten hundreds of slices of pizza, walked thousands of miles, closed down many a bar. I've had the New York experience that I was looking for when I first moved 10 years ago or 11 years ago. But at this point, to be frank, I am exhausted. I'm worn out by the city, and I've decided that my 11th year is going to be my last in New York. I plan to stay till the end of the year, and then once it gets cold, I'm going to leave and go someplace warm. And preferably near a beach. But that's kind of not what I'm thinking about at this point, because it's a beautiful Sunday in May. It's just like mid-70s, perfect weather, everybody's out, and I'm wearing the uniform of a single guy in his 30s when it's nice out, and that's a t-shirt, jeans, and flip-flops. And I'm flip-flopping my way around the produce aisle, and I'm just starting to test the ripeness of an orange when I see off in the distance, standing next to a wall of avocados, a beautiful woman. She's tall, has long brown hair, and she's wearing a black leather jacket and what can only be described as celestial yoga pants. And I just think this woman is out of this world. But I don't say anything. I look down at my flip-flops until she's out of sight. For me, I haven't had the best dating record in New York for the past 11 years. In fact, in the past decade, I've had exactly 0 long-term relationships. And if I'm being completely honest with myself, I think the reason I haven't gotten into a serious relationship is because I've never been serious about staying in a relationship, at least not in New York. It was just a very cool place to be single, but it was just a very distracting place to have a relationship. And I think part of my motivation also for leaving and going somewhere else was to have like a clean slate where I could eventually settle down and start a family. And I promised myself that as soon as I got to this new location, I would make a more serious approach to dating. But in the meantime, as long as I was in New York, I was gonna have one last summer of being single. And I'm making all these plans in my head as I'm like walking around and doing my shopping, and as I'm turning a corner in the food town to go into the cereal aisle, who should I see right directly in front of me but the woman with the black leather jacket and yoga pants? And guess what she's looking for? Oatmeal. You guys know this one? And I know that my jeans and flip-flops are no match for her leather jacket and yoga pants, but I think to myself, what are the odds that I'm gonna see the same woman in the same grocery store more than once? Like 1 in 3? That's not a very good percentage. So I said to her, I have to say something to her. So I flip-flop and push my little cart in her direction, and I get up to her and I say the first thing that comes to mind. I say, "Gee, isn't it hard to pick out oatmeal in this supermarket?" I swear that's what I said. Isn't it hard to pick out oatmeal in this supermarket? I should have said, I kind of might as well have said, isn't it hard to pick up women in this supermarket? I could have said, I like the cut of your oats. That might have been a little bit better, but probably not. But that's what I said, and I expected her to flee. I expected her to abandon her cart and just get out as fast as she could with her yoga pants. But surprisingly, she smiled and answered. She said, "Yes, it is kind of hard to pick out oatmeal in this supermarket. There's like a whopping 3 brands." And I was like, "Yeah, and all the flavors are the same. They're all oatmeal flavored." And then she said, "Yeah, except for this children's oatmeal, which has animal bits in it." And she said, "Wouldn't it be funny if we both got this same oatmeal just for fun?" And that's what we did. We got the Quaker Oats Safari Animals oatmeal, which, as it turns out, is awful. It's a terrible. Do not try this oatmeal, guys. But that's not the point. The point is we were connecting. We were having incredible small talk. We were doing the thing, but she seemed very nice and she wasn't running away. But then she said and then I got scared because she said, "Well, I'm done with my shopping, and I think I'm going to go to the checkout aisle now." And I looked inside my cart and saw the single orange rolling around. And I said, "Me too." I'm done too. So we walk to the checkout aisle together. We keep talking. I find out some about her. Her name is Kat. It's short for Catherine. She's from New York. She grew up in Manhattan. She has a job in the arts that she doesn't really like, and she just got back from a Prince-themed yoga class, which explains the outfit. And we also live 3 blocks away from each other. So once we finished checking out, I said, "Would you like to walk back towards our respective apartments?" And she was like, "Sure, let's walk back." So we walked back, she carrying her bags of groceries, and me carrying my orange and oatmeal. And I asked her, I said, "Would you mind if I put my orange and oatmeal inside your bag so I have nothing to carry at all?" I'm just kidding, I would never. I carried one of her bags home, and we got to my block, and I said, "Well, this is my street, but would you mind if I get your number, and would you want to hang out sometime?" And she said, "Sure." And what was supposed to be a summer of being single in New York became a summer that I spent nearly every day with Kat. And as the summer turned to fall, I finally realized that I was in my first serious relationship in New York, and I hadn't even really tried. But then I was getting worried because I still wanted to leave the city. But I didn't want to leave Kat, so I was getting very anxious and stressed about this impending departure. And then one night, I think it was in early December, we were at our favorite little ramen spot in our neighborhood, and she says to me, she says, "Jeremy, I have something I need to tell you. I just got accepted into Vermont woodworking school. And the classes start in January." And I thought to myself, what do I know about Vermont? All I know is it's very cold, and I'm pretty sure it's not near a beach. And she said, "I think I want to go." And I said, "Me too." And 8 months later, we're still here in Vermont. We're married now, and we have a 1-year-old daughter who, in spite of, or maybe because of her parents' meet cute story, does not like oatmeal. Thanks, Dad.
Should we take a break? What do you want to keep going? Let's keep going. Okay, we're gonna keep going. Keryn Nightingale.
We're gonna set up her.
We're gonna set up, okay, so it takes a few minutes.
Well, I'll just get the dolls. Just get the doll. That's it.
Okay.
I don't need it all. That's fine. I mean, I want to hug them all. But, do you think I need this mic? Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. I'll do mic. Hello. There they are. Super. I'm gonna open them up. So the crone with the cane. I met her. She's Baba Yaga. I made her hut. She has many forms. She's in Barbie doll form right now in there. But she changed my life, and I told a story about her on stage. And in the story, there are dolls in this girl's pocket, Vasilisa, and they tell her which way to go, how to find Baba Yaga's hut. And they are our instincts that we get from our mothers. And they'd say, go this way, go that way, and that's how she would go and find Baba Yaga's hut and go through all of the tasks that she needed to accomplish to get, it's like a skull with flames inside, so it's like the fire of her ancestors. So she knows who she is by studying the people that she came from. And while usually I have things memorized for an hour and a half, I had less than a week to prepare. And so I'm going to read because there was not time to rehearse. And I'm not going to freestyle because I've become quite attached to rhyme and verse. These were the instructions that birthed this wee production. Bring in a singular possession bewitched with story possession. 1? Okay, how about 4, 11, 28 more? Oh, please, come over to my house. I'll give you a 10-hour tour. The objects themselves could tell their stories. Oh, what personalities. But tonight it is one-ish. Alas and hurrah for boundaries. This is how I sell it when I tell it to the rejects salty about being dismissed, and the talismans still persist, jumped into my purse, pierced my ears, caught me by the wrist. Everybody wanted to come. They were so mad. The reason I chose this and that instead of this or that is because of the story core. Because of the story core. Our objects, these messages of lore, are fixed with a thread, or better said, a fibrous antenna, similar to the one that springs forth from an artist's head. The artist in Moscow who made these dolls and dressed them unknowingly downloaded codes and seals that my nesting mothers seldom revealed. Skeletons up sleeves, knives in pockets, eyes closed open in worried sockets, candles always burning, faith, extinguished yearning, sunk with ships, stitched up lips, watery passages, holy math, verses, prayer beads, hidden paths. The symbols are more than relevant to my motherline covenants buried deep in this Black convent. I did not know this artist. He did not know me, and yet somehow he channeled all of the information I would need. And I could not find him in this time and space because a war has cut him from the marketplace. So thanks be to the Mobius time strip, that mysterious figure-8 trip, because I cast the dolls in my pocket 3 years before the stage production. But I'm equally gutted to think of messages lost to various forms of destruction. A ding on a bowl, a tear on my soul. In there is Baba Yaga's hut. It was built as a story aid to help me live the old Russian tale of Vasilisa the Brave. which I brought to a stage, and by doing so was released from a generational mental cage. I spent 3 years in an old forest searching for Baba Yaga. I couldn't get there without the dolls and their sagas. They never leave my pocket, their endless chatter, I cannot stop it. According to the story, they would give me direction, but their half-stories eclipsed trust, instinct, and protection. So when they said left, I went right. They said sleep, I marched through the night. Straight, I zigzagged. Hurry, I lagged. They said be still, I fluttered. They said now, I puttered. But those ancestral rebels saw straight through my twisted ways and gave me opposite directions, knowing I would disobey. When I walked into Baba Yaga's hut, I was ignorant of the lore. Those who enter recognize themselves no more. I can testify it is true, and I'll add, it isn't easy becoming new. Or old, as the case proved to be, because as I dug deep, I unearthed an ancient key, broke curses cast 10 generations back that brought me processions of obsessions and panic attacks. I had to kill the demons hiding in their masks by doing all the work, Baba Yaga's assigned tasks. I had to feed her, scrub her hut, agitate the laundry, separate what from what. Carry out every spider, filter cider, lure bats, feed cats, pickle brains, drain veins, and toss every bit of waste into the flames. Exhausted, twisted, tied in knots, I'd ask, is this over? Baba Yaga would smile and say, it is not. Then she needled all my scars and told me to count all the stars. She pulled out my insides to divine. But in the presence of that notorious goddess of neutrality and her 2 helping hands, I began to understand that I was no one and everyone, together and alone, tracing circles on a particle in space, rolling around the great dust bunny of the Milky Way. After working my way down to the marrow, circling the stations of the tarot, absorbing lessons in moon school, and embracing the fool, I was born on April Fool's Day, and that should say it all. All I need is a dog, a rose, and a great fall. I then reported what I learned on a stage, bearing witness before turning the page and closing the opening curtain. Of this I am certain. I broke set and packed it all up with the exception of Baba Yaga's hut, where I still stand, mouth agape, remembering what took place when I shrunk myself into this little space to meet Baba Yaga's chameleon face. All the miracles still live there, here, her, with an E. Though what was forged there, I take into the world with me. The sharpest memory, the worst of the sting occurred right before I was given this spring. On my knees, I had fallen, not through prayer, but in exhaustion. I begged my great Aunt Elma to help me through the last of the transcending by lending me her strength. Aunt Elma was a code girl in World War II, one of the few to serve overseas. And though her stories lie in her grave, I know she was chosen because she was brave, an adjective rarely assigned to the women in my line. After serving Uncle Sam, she served no other man, paired up with a Jeanette, took the risk, placed the bet, knew what life was for because she had seen a war. Nonetheless, she was engaged to a soldier, or so the story goes, lost to the beaches of Normandy right after he proposed. The ring, bought in Florence, was turned into a cross, given to me on my first communion, not worn since, my mother fearing it'd be lost. But while I was writing the script, I gave the diamonds to an artist and asked her to set them back where they began, in a circle, a ring, a commitment on my hand. It took her months to touch the cross. The task is heavy, dissecting and reassembling someone's memory. I did not ask, I did not pry. One never nags an artist with when and why. I had forgotten all about it that day. I fell onto my knees, begging, Alma, please, tell me I am not insane. Your name means soul. Is it spirit too, or is this a wild fantasy cooked up by a fool? I got in the shower because I had to bring my blubbering mess out into the world in an hour. While the water cleared the tears and the drain accepted pain, a text came in that started the tears all over again, though they were a different flavor. The ring was finished. I'd have it in an hour. Alma's presence was not crafted in my mind. I should not have doubted, especially in hard times. But though all this memory power is channeled through this ring, and there is clearly magic energy in all of these things, the power lives within us too, picked up by what we pick up, like random pebbles stuck in the sole of my shoe. Surely there'd be heartache if our precious things were stolen, burned, or tossed, but the power, the memory, and their memory cannot be lost. We don't need huts or dolls, rosaries or rings. We know it's true, and yet we could also argue that to hear, touch, see, smell, and admittedly sometimes taste random objects nicked by fate kicked our way, it does not make us materialistic. We are just memory keepers with little story islands scattered across the ocean of our soul, stepping stones to the next unknown. Thank you so much. I highly encourage you to read the tale, Vasilisa the Brave. It's very inspiring. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna put these girls back where they belong in there, under Baba Yaga's hut.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, honey. You can just leave my mat. I'm a mess maker. I really try not to.
Thank you. We produce exhibition experiences. So please come back on the 26th. We have more storytelling. And for those who do have objects and who want to share their stories about these objects, you want to share? Anyone? Anyone want to share? John, you want to share your object? So yeah, you want to grab your object? All of these objects came from the community. They all carry stories, and yet soon as they start to interact in public space, my thinking is that they expand. They start to take on greater and more powerful story elements. Okay? Welcome, John Anderson.
This is pretty fabulous, amazing 3 presentations. And what's, is it on, off?
Is it on? Yeah. be on, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just he's tall.
Okay, coming through?
Yep.
Okay, anyway, the first sentence was, what a fabulous evening this is, thanks to Sam and the board and the gallery, which is continuing to do really great things, and these three amazing presentations. You know, it's so great. So, this object is a knife, and this is the knife. And it is the most precious thing that I own, and I would hope to be able to pass it on someday, but it's beginning to look like that may or may not happen. I have a son who is 42 years old and a daughter who's 40. And Ash, my son, was born in 1982 in Bristol, Vermont. And back in the 70s and 80s, when that was happening, one could imagine having a home birth with midwives and getting involved and being part of it. So with the two wonderful midwives that we had at the time, it was decided that I would be in the room and part of the birth. In fact, that I would be catching the baby and cutting the cord, tying it off and cutting the cord to start that our son's life. So I went to a sculptor named Paul Aschenbach, who some of you may know. He was a real grand old man, a mentor to a lot of young artists, sculptors, and painters in Burlington in the 70s and 80s, and I got to know him pretty well. Amazing guy. The largest outside sculpture at the Bundy Gallery is something that Paul Aschenbach did, so that'd be worth checking out. And I went to Paul and I said, I want a knife to cut the cord of my son. And that's pretty much all I told him. And he made this amazing wood case with this knife. And the shape of it is really powerful because he said, this knife can only have one function. It's not a knife for sawing or cutting bread or doing anything. But it is a knife designed to cut an umbilical cord. So we were at home, we had the two midwives. Ash was painfully late. When it came time, he was born, he projected. I don't know if any of you have seen births, but seems like babies don't slide out. They're launched out, you know, through the air, and you catch them like a football. And we had sterilized shoelaces, which I used to tie the cord in two places, and then you snip them in between, and you get a belly button out of it. And then 2 years later, with the same midwives, now in our new house in Waltham, Vermont, my daughter Ruby was born, and once again, I caught her and cut the umbilical cord with this knife. And there actually are a couple of interesting little daubs, which I think are probably spots of blood. So Ash has twin kids. My grandkids are 8 now, and they were born premature, quite early. Ruby is not planning on having kids at all. And our other daughter, Jill, and my daughter Sabrina, wants babies. So there is a chance that this thing could get used again. But I'm not depending on it. Anyway, that's my object, and thank you for
Yes.
Papers, okay. Harold.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
I feel compelled to tell the story.
Yes. Okay.
Susie Conrad.
Hi, everybody. My object, this is really a story about things that are meant to be with you. And I was living in Australia, and then I traveled to New Zealand for a holiday. And I went to an antique store because I was into collecting antiques. And I came across this rocking horse that I thought was really cool because the horse itself was pieced together, and I thought the woodwork was interesting. So I bought it, and I brought it back to Australia where I was living. And then I moved back to the United States, so I brought it back to the United States. And then my husband and I bought a house in Louisbourg, Nova Scotia. And we furnished that house, and everything that we sent up there, we were like, it's staying up there. It's never coming back to the United States. And so this horse went up to Nova Scotia. And so it's been up there for, I think, 5 years. And when we sold the house, there were only like 2 or 3 things that we sold it furnished. And there were only 2 or 3 things that the owner didn't want back. And one of them was this horse. So anyway, it has come back to me, and now I've got to share it with all of you. Thank you.
Okay, so we have
More storytelling on April 26th with Peter Lynn, George Woodard, who's here, both are here, and also Monica Callan, and Farine Paris. I don't know if you're familiar with Farine Paris. And Larry. I did mention Larry. Larry Guild. Larry Guild, George Woodard, Farine Paris. Okay. That's it. Anyone else? Julie, you want to share your object?
You know, Bill's not here, he's part of it.
Okay. All right. Thanks, you guys, for coming. And thank you to MRV TV, okay? Thank you for sound, film, links on our website.
I wanted it.